Hi, welcome to episode 93 of the Knitting Expat Podcast. My name is Mina and I'll be your host today. Welcome. So thank you so much for joining me. If you are a new viewer, thank you so much for checking me out. I really appreciate you taking the time. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. Yeah, it's great to have you here. And so I'm coming to you. I guess I need to work on my introduction a little bit more, but I'm coming to you today from my apartment in New York, where I live with my husband and our 2 cats, and we've got a little girl on the way. I'm currently 35 weeks pregnant, almost 36 weeks, and yeah. So, and as you can see, the apartment is still empty behind us. Our furniture hasn't quite arrived yet, but I have some good news about that, which I'll get to in a moment. But yeah, so again, there'll be a bit of echoing, so I'm sorry about that. Most people said it wasn't much of an issue last week, so I hope it's not an issue again this week. And yeah, so also wanted to say thank you to everyone who introduces themselves in the introduction thread in our group. We do have a Ravelry group for the podcast. And here comes Hugo. Hugo's one of our 2 cats. And he usually comes and joins me on the podcast for a little bit. But we do have a Ravelry group for the podcast. Hello. Say hi. And that is the Knitting Expat Podcast on Ravelry. And you can find show notes for this and all past episodes at knittingexpat.wordpress.com. And what else? You can find me on Instagram as as Knitting Expat. I'm on Ravelry as Mina Phillip. Everything will be linked below the video on YouTube. It's also linked in the show notes and in the Ravelry group. So wherever you're watching this video, you should be able to find links to everywhere else that I am online. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, thank you. Thank you for the little nose nudge. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't forget anything. But yeah, so thank you to everyone who's introduced themselves in the group. And yeah, we have some really good news. In fact, we found out yesterday that our furniture's arrived in the US. It's arrived at the port on Monday, which is the date they told us it would get here. And originally the information we got from the movers is that it takes 5 to 7 working days to clear customs, assuming they don't want to hold it for further screening, which about over 90% of shipments from the Middle East get stopped for additional screening, which could take weeks. But thankfully, ours was declared as being one they didn't want to screen, and they cleared customs like within 24 hours. So it's already out of customs now, and it's being delivered to the movers. So the movers will be delivering it to us next week. So I'm really, really excited. We're so excited, and it's finally glad that something's gone our way in our favor, and like this happening quickly compared to a lot of the drama that we've had in this move. Sorry, it's cat and his tail. He's like, all attention on me. So yeah, that's been a massive relief. I don't think I quite realized how stressed I was by that until we found out that it was all okay and it was all here and it was all fine and it was going to get here quickly and not as late as we'd worried about. I slept so well last night. It's the best I've slept in a long time. So that was another sign that I'd obviously been quite stressed. But yes, anyway, it was about time something worked out in our favor. Okay, so I'll move on now to the podcast, the rest of the podcast. There is a coupon code thread in the group, so people who have fibre related businesses can post coupons and discounts and whatever in that thread. So by all means, go ahead and check that out if you are in the market for some enabling. And yeah, and I also have a couple of patterns that have been released since the last time I spoke with you guys. The first one is the snow day shawl, which I am wearing here, and I showed you on the podcast last week as a finished object. I got such a positive response from that podcast about the shawl that I sort of sped up the release date of the pattern. So apologies, mine is slightly crumpled. It spent most of the weekend crumpled up in my bag at Vogue Knitting Live because it was so warm. But yes, this is now available on Ravelry. It is the snow day shawl. Hey, do you like it? I think Hugo likes it. But it's knit out of sport weight. All the details are on the pattern page. I knit this out of Quince & Co. Chickadee in 3 colours, 350 gram skeins. is all I needed to make this size. The pattern is very adaptable. I provide percentages for how much yarn I use for each section. So if you are using a different weight skein or different weight of yarn, then you can adapt and maximize your yarn usage using those percentages. Sorry, it is actually quite warm in here. I've left the windows closed and to try and minimize the street noise. Are you licking my chin? Is it tasty? Anyway, he's been very demanding today. I don't know what's up with him. He's not usually like this. Or maybe he is. But so I've kept the windows closed, so it is a bit warm in here. And the second pattern that I have released is what I've called Mina's Vanilla Sock Recipe. So I do have a free sock tutorial, sort of sock recipe in my Ravelry shop, which is Mina's 2 at a Time socks, and that is still available for free. But that just includes that's mostly instructions on how I get set up to knit 2 at a time. It does include full instructions on how to knit a pair of socks. But the heel included in that one is just a standard short row wrap and turn heel. In Mina's Vanilla Sock Recipe, which I will show these again in finished objects, but is this pair. I have included instructions for the mini heel flap adjustment that I've been talking about for the last couple of months, and also instructions for the Gemma short row heel and how I knit that. So that's really the main difference between the two patterns, is the heel instructions. I also go further into detail about sizing and stuff like that of a pair of socks. And the instructions for the mini heel flap adjustment are provided both for socks where you're knitting the heel in the same colour yarn, or if you're using a contrasting colour yarn. And because the instructions are ever so slightly different. I'm trying to think what else is in there. There's a photo tutorial on how to do the mini heel flap adjustment. For the German short row heel, I've already done a video tutorial for that, which is only available if you've bought one of my patterns that has the German short row heel in it. That video is not publicly available online. So the link is only in a pattern that has the German short row heel in it. I've had quite a few questions about that, people asking where to find the heel tutorial. So there's a video tutorial for the heel part, not for the heel flap adjustment, just because I don't have a setup at the moment where I can film a tutorial. But I'm hoping by around summertime I will be able to get that done once things settle down with the baby. So that's available, and the pattern's only $2 on Ravelry for the socks. So feel free to pop on over and purchase that if you would like. I've had quite a lot of people interested in it. I did have a few people test knit those socks, the heel flap adjustment for me, and had pretty positive response all around. It does provide just that little bit of extra depth in the heel if you have a high instep, or if you find you get a lot of pulling across the front of your socks. So when you put a pair of socks on, sometimes with the short row heel across this section here, you get quite a lot of pulling of the fabric. And if you find that's the case for you, then the heel flap adjustment might just be what you need. It can be used with any short row heel. You can use it with short row wrap and turn. You can use it with the Bishop's Kiss heel, any other alternate. You don't have to use the German short row heel. That heel flap adjustment works for any short row heel that you would like to use. It is, however, strictly a top-down pattern at the moment. I don't knit socks toe up. I am not entirely sure how that would work toe up. How you would have to reverse engineer it. I'd probably have to speak to someone who knits toe up socks a lot to find out if there's a way of adapting that sort of technique. But for now, it is strictly a cuff down heel option. And what you can't see is Hugo is just like sprawled out in front of me, flat on the table, taking a nap. Let me see if I can show you. He's ridiculous. Look at that. Okay, so one final announcement before we get started. My Vogue Knitting Live vlog is up on the channel, so you can go check that out if you want to see what we got up to at the weekend. I will talk more a little bit about it. at the end of the podcast. But if you want to see what we got up to, then you can always check out that video. And I've made sure to try and link all the different podcasters that are in the video below in the video description of the vlog, so you should be able to just go through and find all the different podcasts. I think I've included everybody. I hope I haven't missed anybody out. If I have, please let me know and I'll go and add it back in. I didn't mean to miss anybody, but just in case, I'm only human. Alright, so we will move on to the main crux of the podcast, the knitting stuff. So I'm going to start with finished objects, works in progress, then there's going to be quite a big acquisition segment this week, followed by some information about some changes I've made to my Ravelry design shop, knit along giveaway news, Q&A, and then a bit of a weekend review at the end. So quite busy, quite a full podcast this week. So first up with finished objects. So the first one I'm going to show you are the pair of socks I've just been showing you now. So these are just a pair of vanilla socks with the mini heel flap adjustment and Gemma short row heel. I knit this out of it's Friends in Fibre yarn in the Fibre Jewels colorway. It is a Corriedale nylon base, and yeah, it is really it feels like really sturdy sock yarn. It's not super soft, but it's not super rough either. And the heel, the contrasting heel, is a Regia 4-ply, just a solid color. And yeah, I really like how these have turned out. This yarn was sent to me by a lovely viewer. I think I remember who it is, but I don't want to say just in case I get it wrong. But thank you so much to whoever it was who sent this to me. I really enjoyed knitting with it. And my second finished object is another pair of socks, and these are a pair of socks from a sock blank, if you couldn't tell. So these were knit from a sock blank by Primrose Yarn Company. It's a one-of-a-kind sock blank in the Saviour colorway, and I really love how this knit up. And these have been blocked, and you can see that the stitches have for the most part evened out nicely, and I just love how speckled and colourful it looks. And yeah, really enjoyed working on these. I knit on these a lot during Vogue Knitting Live, and I finished them on the Saturday evening when we went for dinner, so very much a memory of that weekend. And I also did the mini heel flap adjustment on this one as well. It's harder to see, it's just here, it's harder to see the gusset and decreases on a sock when you're not doing a contrasting heel. It sort of blends in a bit more because it is such a small heel flap. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about this. Oh, I had a couple of questions about how I felt about knitting from a sock blank versus regular yarn and regular sock yarn from a skein. I have no issues with it. What I do find is that my tension tends to be a bit tighter when I knit with a sock blank, because I'm pulling on the yarn more to try and even out the kinks when I'm knitting with it, to avoid too much of the excess kinky yarn ending up like messing with the gauge too much. So I do find the socks do tend to be a little bit more snug versus my usual socks that I knit, but I don't find that to be a problem per se. I just sort of factor that in. Otherwise, you know, they block out nicely after you're done, so it doesn't even, you don't really notice the fact that it was kinky yarn before you started knitting with it. So yeah, I don't have any issues working from a sock blank. I actually quite enjoy it. It's nice. It's a nice change every now and again to mix things up. And so both of those socks were knit on 2.25mm high sharps, which are my sock knitting needle of choice. I realise I don't really mention needles too often because more often than not I'm using my high sharps. And my third finished object is a hat. I'm not going to put this on just because my hair's up in a bun and it won't fit over my head. But this is a hat design that I just sort of came up with, and it's nice and cabley and delicious and squishy, and I've really enjoyed working on this as well. This size is basically an adult sort of beanie. It's quite a fitted hat, which is why it won't fit over my head right now with the bun. But I tried it on Perry's head and it fits him perfectly. It's the right sort of size that he likes for a hat. As the crown decreases, it comes down and it's like snug over his ears, but it's not too loose at the back, which he doesn't like. I mean, he probably won't wear this. It's not really his sort of thing, I guess. I don't know, he might wear it. But and then there'll be a version in the pattern where you can knit it a little bit longer. You can actually knit it as long as you want, to make it a little bit more slouchy if you want a slouchier hat. So this has my favorite folded brim and some really fun cables. I knit this out of Malabrigo sock held double. So in my experience, fingering weight yarn held double tends to work out to a worsted weight / heavy DK sort of thickness of yarn. And I knit this up on 4mm needles, which is a US 6. I knit worsted weight hats on a variety of needles over the years, or over the last few months, and I've done them from 4mm to 4.5mm to 5mm, and I really like the density that you get out of a 4mm worsted weight hat knit on 4mm needles. My Shirestones hat, which is another pattern that I designed, I knit out of Madeline Tosh vintage on 4mm needles, and it is so squishy and so dense and so warm. I've literally been living in that whenever it's cold here. Whenever the weather's cold enough for a hat here, that's pretty much the first one I gravitate towards. And so when I was coming to design this and start working on it, I realized I really like that sort of density, especially on the folded brim, which is really, really squishy. And yeah, and I was a bit concerned about how the cables would look with fingering weight held double, especially in this variegated yarn, but I think by holding it double, it's kind of evened out that variegation a little bit. So whilst it is still quite a variegated yarn, it's not too, the cables still pop out. I mean, the yarn's a little bit washed out in this light at the moment, but you get the idea. I'm not sure. But in person anyway, the cables do pop quite nicely, which is great. So I need to get this written up, and I will be contacting some people for testing, and then this will be out as well relatively soon. I think I said the colorway was the Potion colorway, P-O-C-I-O-N is the colorway name for that one, from Malabrigo. Okay, so we will move on to works in progress. I don't have any more blanket blocks knit up this week, but I will hopefully be getting back to that at some point. Then I have, my next work in progress is my Cozy Schlanket Mystery Knit Along shawl. So I've been knitting along with you guys to see for the mystery knit along, and if you want it to be a mystery and you don't want to see what it looks like, then just turn away for like the next minute or so. I'll try not to say too much about the design so you can still listen. But we're at clue 3 now, so I finished clue 3 and I've already gone in and started weaving in some ends. This is where I'm currently at. The cable is a little bit curly-whirly and a bit annoying actually. I should have tried to run it under some hot water before I started this project, but I didn't. But I'm at the end of clue 3 at the moment, and we've got 1 clue left to go. It is quite big. I've measured, this is the worsted weight version. The pattern is written for both Aran and worsted weight. I'm finding actually that I have a lot more yarn left at the moment than I did when I was knitting the Aran weight version, which is fine. I kind of expected that to be the case, but because I'm also using smaller needles with this one. But I laid it out against the Aran weight shawl. I've put it away now, so if you wanted it to be a secret, you don't have to look. I mean, you can look now. I laid it out against the Aran weight version to see how big it was in comparison, because a few people had been asking about that in the chatter thread, and it's almost as big. It's a little bit smaller. It's about lengthwise across the top, it's about maybe 2 inches smaller at the moment from what I can figure out from laying it out. But bear in mind, my Aran weight version has been blocked. This hasn't. The worsted weight version hasn't been blocked. So I think Derek is making some noises. So. Sorry if you can hear that. The worsted weight version hasn't been blocked yet. Also bear in mind, both of my shawls, the Aran weight version and my worsted weight version, are being knit out of non-superwash yarns. So I knit my Aran weight version out of Peace Fleece, and this worsted weight version is being knit out of the Fibre Company Cumbria, and Cumbria worsted. So and these are the colours: Eden Valley, this teal colour, Cowberry is this fuchsia, and Helvellyn for the chartreuse. So bear in mind as well, my yarns aren't superwash. So if you've got a superwash yarn that you're using for your shawl, those tend to stretch out more with blocking. And yes, and also, to be honest, your finished shawl size is going to be very much dependent on how aggressively you block it as well. My first one wasn't blocked at all aggressively because I didn't have anything to block it with. I just soaked it and squeezed out the water and laid it out flat. That was all I could do. I couldn't pin it out or anything, and it was still pretty decent size. So I'm not too concerned. It'll be a decent size shawl at the end of the day. Hey, he's still just laying down here, Hugo, having a good time. Hey. So my next work in progress is in the lovely New York winter scene project bag that the lovely Shawla sent me from Adelaide Cottage, and I'm working on a new sock design out of the yarn that she sent me. So I'll show you the yarn first. And these socks are also a bit of a first for me in the way that I am knitting them, which I'll talk more about in a second. So this is the yarn. So it's Adelaide, there we go, Adelaide Cottage yarns. It's on her Donegal tweed base. How beautiful that is. I showed this on the podcast last week in the skein. And this is in her Gingerbread Girl colorway. It's 85% superwash merino, 15% Donegal net. And it is beautiful. I'm not really a pinks person at all. Most of you know this by now. But for some reason, this sort of beautiful rosy pink color with the darker bits of red and the tweedy neps in it are just make me really happy for some reason. I don't know, it was very strange because, like I said, pink is not usually my color. I happily knit pink for other people who request it, but rarely do I knit pink for myself. Sorry, just getting myself all tangled up here. As you can see, I have two socks on two separate needles. It's my first bit of acquisition from Vogue Knitting Live, actually. I picked up some 32-inch high sharp 2.25mm needles to try concurrent sock knitting. It is something I've been wanting to try for a while. I've been considering not switching over completely, but starting to knit some socks concurrently because I figure once baby arrives, it might be easier to manage one sock at a time, knitting them concurrently, than knitting two at a time socks. It might just be easier to manage with a baby, potentially. I don't know. Also, it's something I've been interested in and curious about trying out. It gives you the same effect as knitting socks two at a time, in that, you know, you knit a little bit on one, then you switch, you knit a little bit on the other, so you're always at the same point. Or that's the theory anyways, that you're always at the same point on both socks. But you don't have the added, I don't want to say complication because it's really not difficult, but you don't have the added fuss of dealing with the yarn management of two at a time, which for me is not a fuss at all. It is basically second nature to me right now. Like, I do it all the time, so it's not even something I think about. But something I have been wanting to branch out into and trying a bit more is maybe, you know, trying some colorwork socks, or socks with a little bit of that are a little bit more complicated maybe than just simple textures, which is what I prefer to do and do prefer to knit for the most part. But I figure for those sorts of projects, especially for socks that involve color work, where you're going to have where you're going to have two colors at a time on each round, knitting them concurrently is going to be more practical than knitting them two at a time, because I can't imagine managing 4 balls on one needle. 4 balls of yarn attached to one long cable needle is going to be particularly fun. So this is why I wanted to try out concurrent knitting. I'm not 100% convinced. I still feel, I feel like this is slower for me than knitting 2 at a time. But I think it's just a matter of getting used to a new technique and trying something out that's a little bit different. I'm also designing my first pair of like truly lacy socks. I've dabbled in a few sort of sock patterns that have some lace features to them, but I wouldn't call them lacy socks per se. I think my Vida socks are the only ones that I can think of off the top of my head that really involve some sort of lace pattern at all, but they're not overly lacy. But this is what this is currently knitting up like. I'm not going to show it to you in too much detail because I want it to be a bit of a surprise when it's finished. But this actually isn't going to be one that will be part of the sock pattern club that I was talking about last week. I'll talk more about that later, but this is going to be like a standalone pattern that will be coming out soon, hopefully. And yeah, I'm really, really excited about this. I'm not far off from popping in the heels, and they're both at the same point now. And yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this. And as soon as I saw the yarn from Shauna, as soon as I saw that, I knew it had to be a pair of lacy socks. So really excited with how these have turned out. And once again, that's the yarn. It is just stunning. And like I said, I'm not usually a pink person, but occasionally the color calls out to me and you can't help it. And my third and final work in progress is in my TARDIS Doctor Who bag. And this one is a design project for the sock club, so I'm only going to show you the back because I'm only doing the texture on the front, or the pattern on the front. And this is what the yarn is knitting up like. This is Primrose Yarn Company in her January 2017 club colorway. You can see that there. And it came with a contrasting color for cuffs, heels and toes. I didn't use it for cuffs, but I will be using it for heels and toes. And these are now ready for heels at this point. And this yarn is so squishy. It is her, I think she calls it her, her Luscious sock base? Yeah, Luscious sock. So 4-ply fingering, superwash merino nylon, 440 yards in 115 grams. So yeah, it's super squishy, very, very thick. I probably could have gone up in needle size. I'm knitting these on 2.25mm needles. I probably could have gone up to a 2.5. These are pretty dense, but they're going to be the squishiest of squishy socks once they're done. And I am really, really looking forward to working more on those, getting those heels popped in. What I'm trying to do is get as many of the patterns samples knit up before the baby gets here for the sock club, so I have a bit of a head start on the patterns for the rest of the year. So if things do slow down for a couple of months after she's born, I don't fall behind on the sock club patterns. But like I said, more about that in a little bit. I'm going to take a quick break. I need to rearrange my setup for acquisitions, which is up next. I may also have to crack open a window because it's getting very warm in here right now. And yeah, I will be back with you in a moment. Back again for acquisitions now. Now, this is normally what I would do is split stuff up and show you over a couple of weeks, but I decided this time I'm just going to show you all today. And if you're not interested in seeing acquisitions, or if you get bored or whatever, I will put a little timestamp on the video here to show you where you can skip to get to the end of acquisitions if you don't want to watch all the yarn piggery, wool piggery that went on over the weekend. I will say that almost half of the stuff I acquired over the weekend was given to me by amazing people. Only 2 things of which I was expecting. Everything else was a surprise. So I will go over those things first, just because I've said this so many times before in the past, but I'm so overwhelmed and filled with gratitude for everyone who supports the podcast and is kind enough and decides that they want to give me something. I never expect it from anybody. I don't ever have any expectation of it. It's always a surprise when it happens, and I'm always incredibly grateful. And so yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to those people first before I show you the things that I purchased myself. But also, I just wanted to start by saying that I was actually quite happy with how things went this year, purchasing wise. I had a vague list, shall we say. I didn't have a very specific list, but I had a good idea of what I was looking for and what I didn't want to get and what I did want to get. I didn't want to buy too much fingering weight yarn. I wanted to buy more heavier weight yarn. I sort of talked a bit more about this last week as well. I had a specific budget in mind of how much I wanted to spend. Or that I didn't want to go over. I was looking for a sweater quantity of either DK or worsted weight yarn, but I had low expectations of being able to find something for the price I was looking for. So that was kind of in addition to the budget that I had. I wanted to get more. I was looking for sock yarn for Perry. I was looking for a self-striping and a speckled sock yarn and a couple of other sort of like special skeins potentially. And for the most part, I actually hit most of the things I was looking for. So I'll come to that in a bit. And I was quite happy that I didn't really go over budget by too much. I didn't say that because I completely forgot to keep track of how much I was actually spending at the event. And so at the end, when I realized I only went $20 over my initial budget, I was pretty chuffed with that. And yeah, and I actually did find a sweater quantity, which I'll again, like I said, show you in a second, and at a very good price as well. The budget I had in my head for a sweater quantity was separate from everything else, and like I said, I wasn't expecting to find anything, but in my head I was like, if I can find a sweater quantity of DK or worsted for under $100, that would be of a really good quality yarn that I really would enjoy working with and would last a long time sort of thing, then that would be worth it to me, because I did the maths for my size and generally the length of body and sleeves that I enjoy knitting. For garments for myself, for a worsted weight or DK, I would need a minimum of 12 to 1300 yards of yarn. And most worsted skeins are roughly 200 yards per 100 grams. And most indie dyed or hand dyed skeins of worsted weight yarn, or of yarn in general, worsted weight or otherwise, are around the $20 to $25 range. I'm thinking even if you're looking at like something like Madeline Tosh or even Malabrigo Rios is about $18 to $20 a skein, depending where you're buying it from. And I would need at least 6. So that generally would push the cost of buying a sweater quantity of worsted weight yarn for me over $100. Even if I'm going for something like a Malabrigo Rios, which is why the $100 was like the limit. I was like, if I can find something for less than that, then that would be an amazing find, in my opinion. And in terms of what I considered value for money. So that was that. And I was very, very surprised I was actually able to find something that fit the bill. So, like I said, I'll talk more about that when I show you those yarns in a bit. But first off, I wanted to show you the things that I was surprised by. Actually, the first two I wasn't surprised by. These were things I was expecting. I had contacted Gabby from Once Upon a Corgi and Julie from Sweet Sparrow Yarns, who are also good friends of mine. They also have podcasts, which I will have linked in the show notes. And they also dye yarn, and I'd asked them if they wanted to provide yarn support for the sock pattern club that I'm doing, and they both said yes. And so the first yarn I got was from Gabby. And so this, actually I'll take it out of the bag so you can see. This is her Oswald for Maya colorway on her Marie Cutie base, which is 75% superwash Corriedale, 25% nylon. 100 grams is 443 yards. And I just love the purples and greens and blues and grey. Is anyone surprised I went for this color? She sent me some pictures to pick from, and this was the one that was like, yes, yes, please. And so she very kindly, and she also kindly wound it up into 2 cakes for me so I can start knitting from it straight away. And this is going to be the next thing on my needles. It's going to be this one. And it's actually quite soft for a Corriedale base yarn, so I was quite chuffed with that. So that was what I was expecting from Gabby. What I wasn't expecting was the rest of the things that she gave me. She also gave me a skein this beautiful, of her Lily Potter colorway. It's a bit washed out there, it's a bit darker in real life, but this is on her ginger base, which is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% gold stellina, and 100 grams is 438 yards. That's a bit better color representation there. I don't think you're going to see the glitter on the camera, but it is super sparkly. And this one, she said, was because, you know, in case I ran out of something to knit, which I thought was very cute. And thank you again, Gabby, for having that skeined up for me. So these will be on the needles at some point as well. And then she also gave me a bunch of teas from David's Tea to try, which I'm looking forward to trying those, and a couple of sachets as well. And finally, as if all that wasn't enough, she knit a little baby hat for the baby out of some superwash handspun. And I'm assuming it's your handspun, Gabby. I didn't actually ask you, but she said she wasn't entirely sure how big babies were going to be, so she wasn't sure if this would fit her straight away or not. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure this will fit her next winter, because I really, really hope her head isn't this big when she comes out. That'd be a big-headed baby. But yes, no, thank you so much, and it's really, really soft and it's super squishy, and I love the colours. So thank you for that, Gabby. And Julie from Sweet Sparrow Yarns gave me a skein of her Garden Rose colourway on her Nut Hatch base, which is 75/25 superwash merino nylon, 463 yards in 100 grams. Get that to focus. And Julie's colourways are the complete opposite of everything I normally go for, but in the best possible way. She does very subtle colours, very sort of well, like this basically, very beautiful, very elegant, very girly, and it's very delicate. I think that's probably the best way to describe her aesthetic. It's very delicate, and like I said, in the best possible way. I am not a delicate person, and I just love these little speckles in this skein. And yeah, I think this will make a beautiful, beautiful pair of socks, and I already know which pattern this one's going to be. As soon as I saw the yarn, as soon as she gave it to me, I knew exactly which design it was going to be. So thank you so much for that, Julie, and I can't wait to get this wound up soon as well. Then next, I bumped into the lovely Sharon from the Knit Style podcast, and she also has the Knit Style yarns. I think so. Her website is just knitstyleyarns.com, and she gave me a little mini skein of her Slutty Pumpkin colorway, which I think is really, really adorable. I love that name. If it'll focus on the, there we go. Really fun colorway there. And she also had a lovely skein of yarn for me as well. And this was so, as soon as I saw this, I was like, ooh, that's pretty. And she was like, she'd picked this one out with me in mind. So that was quite appropriate. And this is her Squirtle colorway. It's a Pokemon reference, and it's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and it's a lovely full ply. And look how beautiful those colors are. I absolutely love, get that to focus, there we go. I love those pops of color in here. And it was so lovely to finally get to meet Sharon in person. I'd heard about her a lot from Kristen, so of the Vulvavine Yarngasm podcast, sorry. So yeah, so it was lovely to finally get to meet Sharon in person. And yeah, really, really love this colorway, really bright and colourful. We also bumped into Sue and Chelsea from Legacy Knits and Legacy Fibre Arts. And so almost as soon as we saw them, Sue reached to her bag and pretty much threw the skein of yarn at me. I think they'd been looking to see if they could find us. There was like a group of us as we were walking around. And so that was really funny, but it was so nice to see them again. I met them for the first time last year at Vogue Knitting Live, and so it was really nice to get to see them again this year. And Sue very kindly gave me a skein. This is their Valentine's colorway, and it's called Will You Be Mine, and that's wool as in yarn, wool, and you as in the female sheep, E-W-E, so Will You Be Mine, which I thought was a very cute play on words. And this is on their Cozy Toes base, which is 80-10-10 superwash merino cashmere nylon, 435 yards per 100 grams, and this is a beautiful, very Valentine's themed colorway, which I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with yet. It is so soft. It just wants to live here. It just like be a little face pillow. It's so squishy. So it might just be a little face pillow for a while. But no, this will probably be a really soft, swishy pair of socks, or maybe something for the baby. I don't know yet. I haven't fully decided. But this will be something beautiful, I'm sure. And then I was also gifted as I bumped into viewers here and there around the venue, several of them gifted me some beautiful stitch markers to use, and these will all be very well loved, I am sure. Another viewer, as well as stitch markers, gifted me a cute little pair of socks that she'd knit for the baby. So these will fit her eventually. They're probably a little bit big for her as a newborn, but eventually she'll grow into these. So thank you so much for those. I'm sorry I can't remember everyone's names. But one of the stalls we went into, when I say we, I mean I was there always with like friends and other people, and if you see the vlog you'll have seen that I was there with others. So when I say we, I mean me and whoever I was with at the time, because that also kept changing. We popped into Green Mountain Spinnery stand, which was one I was really looking forward to checking out actually, after having heard so much about them from Jenny and Devon on the Tiny Paper Foxes, not Tiny Paper Foxes, Handmade and Woolen podcast, formerly Tiny Paper Foxes. I'd heard a lot about them from them, and I'd really been wanting to check out their stuff. And so to my surprise, I walk in, and the lovely Maureen, who owns Green Mountain Spinnery, I believe, she sort of came up to me. She knew who I was, and I was really surprised by that, but it was so sweet. And she very kindly offered to let me pick out some yarn to try out. So I thought, okay, I had a design in mind that now I've done the snow days, I've got the shawl, I have an idea for a matching hat design. So I picked out some yarn to design a hat to go with the shawl, and possibly something else as well. What I realized when I was there looking at their yarns, it is so rustic, but in the best possible way. It's like, it's not super scratchy. I could totally wear this next to the skin. I definitely feel like my sensitivity to wool has decreased since I've been knitting, but even so, like, this is not particularly rough at all. Like, I don't feel like this would irritate my neck, even like as a shawl or something around my neck. But this is on their DK base. It's Music DK, 100% fine American wool, 2 ounces per skein, 180 yards, 165 meters. I'll just show you that. And this yardage per skein is almost exactly the same as Quinsico Chickadee. So I was talking to Eric about this, of Sticks Lost Twine, and he was saying, yes, this Quinsico Chickadee is actually borderline DK. It's a sport borderline DK weight. So it sort of makes sense that DK skeins are roughly the same sort of yardage. So I feel like this is going to work out quite well. And the colours that I picked out, this one is Evergreen. It's beautiful, rich, sort of forest green colour. This one is a neutral grey, which you all know I love a good grey, if it will focus. And this last one, I really love the name of this one, is Mean Mr. Mustard, which I thought was really, really cute and adorable. So yes, I am just really, really looking forward to getting these on the needles soon as well. And the final thing that I got that I didn't pay for, and this was like a really random surprise. So on the last day that we were at the event on the Sunday, Katie from Inside Number 3, myself, Kelsey from Primrose Yarn Company and the Wool in the Wardrobe podcast, and Eric we were by the stage area where they were going to have the designers panel, and we'd gone back specifically to see the designers panel. But before they did that panel, so a couple of people had come up, and as we were waiting for it to start, chatting to us and stuff, and one person said, oh, they're going to do a yarn toss, and we were like, a what? I was like, a yarn toss. I was like, oh, okay, what is that? They're basically going to throw yarn at you. I was like, oh, okay then. And we were just like, this sounds really strange. But no, lo and behold, they came out with these massive rubber tubs full of yarn, and started throwing them into the audience. And a couple of balls came my way. Eric actually caught both of these and decided they weren't his colours, so he gave them to me. And so it's Rowan pure wool superwash worsted, 100 grams, 200 meters in each ball, and they don't have any colorway names or numbers on them. It's just green and a blue. One of them was like a lavender color, but Carrie from the Notorious podcast was in the row in front, and she'd also caught a lavender colour and this blue, and I asked her if she'd rather have 2 skeins that were the same colour. I'd switch her the lavender for the blue, because I have a lot of purple in my stash anyway, and that way she has 2 skeins of the same colour she could do a bigger project with. And let's face it, I'm more than likely going to do something for the baby anyway, so single skeins are fine in worsted weight for that. So yeah, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with these. I may either use them for a giveaway or use them as something for the baby, or just do some hats out of them. I haven't decided, so we shall see. So that was like a very random surprise at the very end of the event. So that's all the stuff that I got that was given, and then I have this bag of things that I purchased. And like I said, I pretty much stayed on track in terms of what I was looking for. I think there was only really one purchase that didn't have a specific, actually no, I don't think there is. I think everything has a purpose in this bag, which I'm quite happy about. So first up, this isn't even in the order that I purchased things, this is just as I'm pulling them out. First up is this amazing skein. How beautiful is that? This beautiful sort of sunshine colours of yellow and oranges. So this is Neighbourhood Fibre Company. Is that focus? Neighbourhood Fibre Company on their Studio Worsted, which is 400 yards in 8 ounces. So it's a really hefty worsted weight skein. It's like a double skein. And this is going to be another Mariam hat and cowl for my mum, because as I mentioned, I think it was last week, I mentioned how she lost the hat from the original design that I made because they had car trouble, and in the midst of getting that sorted, she lost the hat. So I'm going to make her a new set. And yeah, I took a picture of the yarns, the colours that I found, and she picked between this and a different one and let me choose in the end, so I chose this one because this was my favourite. So, so I'm looking forward to getting that knit up for her soon. So I went by the Dragonfly Fibres booth as well, looking for some green sock yarn for Perry. Again, I told you about the disaster that happened with that last week with his green socks, and I picked out this skein. It's really beautiful, and it's called Mossy Bank. Oh, sorry, I realised the colourway for this one is called Del Rey. I forgot to tell you that. But this is Mossy Bank by Dragonfly Fibres, and it's on their Dragon Sock base. 390 yards in 4 ounces, 100% superwash merino, but it's a really nice sort of tight ply, densely plied yarn. I was trying to send him a picture of it to see if he liked the colour, because he's quite fussy about his colours and how variegated they are. And I wanted to make sure he liked the colour. He likes quite vibrant colours, but he doesn't want them to be like too dull or anything, but at the same time he doesn't want them to be too crazy. So I was having issues sending a picture to him, and then once the picture's sent, I had really bad signal, so I couldn't like get his reply. So in the end, I just took a gamble and bought it. And I thought, well, even if he doesn't like it, I can knit socks for my brother or for myself or for someone else out of it. And then when I finally got a signal, I got this message saying that yes, he liked it. So I was like, okay, thank God for that. That worked out well. But I also picked up a skein of their, this is their exclusive colourway for Vogue Knitting Live this year. And this is the same base, and the colourway is called City That Never Sleeps, which I just thought was perfect. And this will be some fun socks for me, or something fun for me. I really, really like this. But very much my colours again as well. And speaking about Vogue Knitting Live exclusive colourways, Narwhal Needleworks, another booth that I always enjoy visiting. They had their exclusive colourway for Vogue Knitting Live, and this is on their Ravenwood base, which is a fingering weight tweed, so 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon, and the colourway is called Lil Narwhal in the Big City, which I thought was really cute, really adorable name. And again, I love these colours, the blues with like the yellows and the tweed, and it just sings to me. It's like, hello, buy me. So I couldn't help myself. I sort of went back to their booth twice trying to decide what to get, and I was like, well, it has to be this one because look how beautiful that is. So these were the two random sort of special skeins that I'd set aside for in my budget. Sock yarn for Perry. and yarn to knit my mum another Mariam hat and cowl, which were all on the list of things that I was looking for. Another 2 things that were on the list was, one was a skein of self-striping sock yarn, which I picked up. I couldn't go to Vogue Knitting Live or any knitting event and not buy something that was rainbow, right? And so this is from Biscot Yarns, and that's the colorway. I'm not entirely sure how I would say that. It's French, obviously. I think they're a French-Canadian company, and it is a rainbow self-striping, which I'm so excited about. So that was my self-striping skein that I was looking for. I was also looking for a fun speckled skein, and I found this at Into the World, and they had samples of how this is their resist dyed sock base. So this is 75-25 superwash merino nylon, and the colorway is radioactive. And again, it's purples and greens and blues and some neutrals in there. Again, very much my color palette and things that I enjoy. And they had samples of how this style of dyeing yarn knits up. And it knits up really nice and speckled and kind of nicely dispersed without any pooling. So I'm looking forward to doing something with that. This may or may not be socks, I'm not entirely sure, but for now the plan is socks. But I like this, that was fun. So there again, that was my 1 skein of speckled and 1 skein of self-striping that I was looking for. I did also have in mind that I wouldn't have minded getting another gradient set if I found something I liked. And at Wool Bearers, the Wool Bearers booth, we found this beautiful, sorry about the crinkling, this beautiful purple gradient, which I'd seen last year, but I went with the teal last year, and this year I decided to go for the purple. As far as gradient sets go, really can't beat the gradient sets that Wool Bearers put together for value for money. It's 700 yards, 5 ounces, is that 5 ounces total? I think so. So yeah, it's a light fingering weight, and this will make a beautiful shawl. And again, I really know what this is going to be, or I have a pretty good idea what this is going to be, so I was quite happy with that one. But whilst I was also there, I got some sock yarn from them last year, which I really enjoyed, but they didn't have any in colours that I was particularly interested in. But they did have, again, some really good value worsted weight in this amazing teal colour. And I picked up 2 skeins because I wanted something for more than just a hat, but I'm not sure what this is going to be yet. This is either going to be a design, like a child's garment design for next winter, like for the future, or it'll be like a matching hat, cowl, mitten sort of set, potentially. But I wanted to make sure I had enough to do something specific with. Or I also have a couple of, say, baby toddler design patterns in my queue that use worsted weight that would need 2 skeins for the sort of sizes that I'd be looking to knit. So this is quite a versatile purchase in that it could be a few different things. It was very good value for money, and I love the colour, love this teal. It's really super squishy and soft, and yeah, like I said, I don't have a lot of heavier weight yarns in my stash anyway, so I was quite happy to get something in a heavier weight for that. And then the last thing that was on my list was a couple of skeins of DK. Again, I have a sweater sort of design idea, or cardigan design idea for children, babies, something that would be in DK. And I wanted to make sure I had 2 skeins so I could do a larger size. And this is also from Into the World. It's on their Dresden DK, kettle dyed. And this colourway is called Mildly Amusing, which I thought was quite cute. I was really tempted by some of their more crazy variegated ones, but I thought, because I want this to go, I want this to be a garment, or potentially, if I change my mind, an accessory or something, I didn't want it to be too crazy variegated if I did do it in a garment. And I have a couple of patterns in my queue for children's garments that use DK, that if I don't design something, I might do one of those. And there again, like, I didn't want it to be too crazy with pooling and stuff like that, so I went for something that was a bit more on the tonal side than crazy variegated. But it's all these lovely tones of purples and blues and greys, and just really enjoyed how that colour looked. So I picked up 2 skeins of this. And so that, like I said, and again, going with the whole, I need some heavier weight yarns in to balance out all the fingering weight that I have. I was quite happy with all of that. And then I bumped into Sue, when we bumped into Sue and Chelsea had picked up a couple of skeins of worsted weight yarn from a booth that was selling Blue Moon Fibre Arts. And I'd seen the booth, and I sort of walked past the booth, and I didn't really stop and go into the booth. But then I saw the yarn that Chelsea had picked up was some really lovely golden yellow worsted weight, which was really beautiful. And she was saying how great it was, and it was an amazing price for the sheer quantity of yarn you got. And so I was like, okay, I have to go back and have a look and see if I can pick up a couple of skeins for myself. So this was the bonus sweater quantity purchase that I wasn't planning on. So I got myself a couple of yarn babies, some yarn twins. I went with grey in the end. I was toying between this grey and a purple, but I think this sort of lovely textured grey, they had a different grey which was a lot lighter. I mean, this is showing up quite light on screen, it's not quite so light in real life, but they had one that was a lot lighter and a lot more solid and less sort of speckly than this one. But I was just like, this is beautiful. And like I said, I was toying between this and a purple, but I realized I have a sweater quantity in a purple yarn in my stash already, so I thought I'd go for grey. And it's always good to have a nice sort of staple grey cardigan in your wardrobe. So that is what this will be. I had originally thought I was going to do the Trago sweater by Melissa Shishwari, I think that's how you say her name, but they had a sample garment knit up out of this yarn in with cables all over it, and it just looks so beautiful with cables that I think this is going to have to be a cabled cardigan of some kind. And I'm thinking at the moment of, there's a cardigan by Thea Coleman called Bloody Mary, which looks beautiful, and it's not overly cabled, but it's got some beautiful cabled panels and some lovely texture details, and I think this would be beautiful for that. So I should probably give you some details about the yarn. The yarn is Blue Moon Fibre Arts on their Targhee worsted. It's 100% Targhee wool, and it's 616 yards per 250 grams. And yeah, and the colorway is manly, yes, but I like it too. Which I thought was quite cute. But yeah, so the two skeins were less than $70, so well under my budget for a sweater quantity. So I was very happy with that being a bonus purchase. So yeah, so this what it is. And that was it. I say that like it was nothing, but that was everything that I got at Vogue. And like I said, I'm very happy. I didn't go overly crazy like I did last year. Very sort of within the realms of what I was looking for. I still probably purchased more than I necessarily needed to, but this is also probably one of the last times I'm going to be buying yarn on this sort of scale for a long time, because after the baby comes, I'm probably not going to be wanting to spend as much money on yarn initially anyway. I think probably the next big event I'll be going to will be Rhinebeck, potentially. Yes, like I was saying, I think the next big event I'll be going to will probably be Rhinebeck in October, assuming we can manage to make that work. We don't have any definitive plans yet that we're definitely going, but that would be the plan, hopefully, fingers crossed, all goes well. Okay, so that's it for acquisitions. That was a very long segment, and I'm really sorry if you got bored. Like I said, I should have put a timestamp, and you should hopefully have been able to skip if you didn't want to watch. Just a little bit of information now. I actually have made some changes to my Ravelry design store. I've updated the name now, so it should be Knitting Expat Designs. I've decided to go with Knitting Expat across the board for everything, because I had the podcast is Knitting Expat Podcast, and I had Mina Phillip Designs for my pattern designs, and then I had Mina Makes for my Etsy shop, which for now is like closed anyway, so that's out of the picture. But I kind of wanted to bring everything together under a cohesive sort of name slash brand slash something. So I thought Knitting Expat would be the best one to do, as that's the one most people seem to be able to recognize. Also, I get people making mistakes spelling my surname wrong, which is fine, it happens. I'm pretty used to it by now. People spell Philip incorrectly. It's one L with two P's at the end. A lot of people spell it with two L's and one P, or they'll say Mina Phillips with an S at the end. There's no S at the end. And none of that bothers me, like generally speaking, but if someone's trying to search to find me, then having an easy to remember name and spell name that would be easier. So I think sticking with Knitting Expat for the podcast and Knitting Expat Designs will be a lot more cohesive going forward. So I've updated my Ravelry store, I believe, so everything should be coming up as Knitting Expat Designs. I think something's still come up with Mina Phillip on them, but I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, it should be pretty simple to find now. I've also set up a Facebook page for Knitting Expat on Facebook, so you can pop on over and search for Knitting Expat on Facebook, and you should be able to find it there to be able to follow the page. There's not much on there at the moment, but I will be starting to add stuff to that page going forward. I will leave a link to that below the video and in the show notes and stuff if you want to pop on over and join that. And yeah, so that was just some little admin-y stuff. Now we move on to knit-alongs and giveaways. I have quite a bit to talk about for this section. So we have the Cozy Schlanket mystery knit-along going on at the moment. We are on clue 3, and clue 4 will be coming out this Sunday. And once clue 4 is released, the pattern price will go up to the full pattern cost of $5. So if you wanted to get the pattern, but even if you didn't want to knit along right now, you can get it for $4 at the moment. So that's that option is there for you. So once the pattern has been once clue 4 has been released, I will wait a week, and then I will publish the pattern in a pattern format rather than in clue format, with photos and everything else as well, just to give people time to work on it if they don't want to have the final shawl finished look. They don't want the surprise ruined for them, so I'll wait a week and then do that. But so that's going on. For the most part, it seems people are doing great and managing to finish their projects or their clues in time. A lot of people are working on 2 shawls at the same time, which is amazing. For a lot of people, this is their first mystery knit along, or their first shawl, or first shawl and mystery knit along, which I feel really honoured that you would pick one of my designs to do that with. And yeah, it's just been amazing to follow along with everyone's progress. So yes, thank you so much for that. I do have a couple of prizes lined up, but since our furniture is now arriving next week, I'm going to wait until I get everything back and I can sit down and go through and sort of figure out prizes, and hopefully I will announce those next week. And I will also try and remember to share pictures of those in the chatter thread. And then yeah, so we're gonna have, I floated the idea of having a year-long knit along for all of my designs last week on the podcast, and there seemed to be quite a bit of positive response to that, so that is what we are going to do. We're going to have a year-long Knitting Expat Designs KAL. So the hashtag will be Knitting Expat Designs 2017. Does that sound about right? Yeah, 2017. Or no, let's make it Knitting KEDKAL 17. I'll pop it up on the screen if I remember. If not, it'll be in the show notes and in the episode thread. So, and I will set up a chatter thread and finished objects thread as well for that. It will be starting now. Any whips that you have on the needles that you started after January 1st will count. Standard knit along rules apply. You have to be a member of the group, post finished objects in the finished objects thread, etc, etc. Double dipping in other knit alongs, perfectly acceptable, no worries at all. I will draw prizes every 2 months, only because I don't want to make too much work for myself with a new baby and everything else that I've got going on. So I'll draw prizes. First prizes I'll draw at the end of March, then every 2 months, end of May, end of July, end of September, November, and then I will run the KAL until the end of January next year. So I'll draw the last prizes end of January. I will sort of organise and start, organising the first couple of rounds of prizes once our stuff gets here. I have a few things lined up for giveaways and things anyway. Any of my designs will count towards entries for this knit along. The only design that I'm not going to allow is just a plain vanilla sock, because that's not really technically a design. But I will allow a plain vanilla sock if you have used the modified heel flap adjustment and German short row heel. So so that's the only exception there, and I will have that included in the description in the chatter thread and finished objects thread. So please make sure if you are planning to enter just a plain vanilla sock, that you've used the modified heel flap adjustment and German short row heel, not one or the other, both. So that's only because a plain vanilla sock doesn't really count as a design. So that's the only reason why I'm doing it that way. And I think that pretty much covers all the details for that one. And like I said, I will have all of that written out in detail in the thread in the group. And I also floated the idea of doing a sock pattern club last week as well. And again, I was pretty overwhelmed by the response to that and the positive feedback I got about it. So that's definitely something I will be doing. I've already started planning for it. I've planned out the designs and I have all the yarns lined up for it. And yeah, so hopefully the club will start on the 1st of March with the first pattern release on the 1st of March. The reason being, baby's due in February, if you weren't already aware by now, if you're new. And I need to give myself some time to get everything set up, I guess. I'm not entirely sure how this will work. I've contacted Ravelry to hopefully get some help in setting this up. I've not done a pattern club before. I'm not entirely sure of the best way to organize it on Ravelry. I have an idea of how I could make it work, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the most efficient or the best way to do it. So I wanted to contact them and find out what would be the best way to do it. And I also wanted to put the club up for pre-sales. So the only information I found on Ravelry for how to do pre-sales says contact Ravelry for information on how to do pre-sales. So that's what I've done. And I'm hoping they'll get back to me soon so I can get that organized. I would like to get pre-sales set up so that you guys can pre-order the club from February. That's the plan for now. We will see how things go. Like I said, I'm still working out the exact details of how it's all going to work out. I'm trying to think, what else was it? Yeah, so there will be a sort of pricing structure based on different things, which I will explain again once I have it all figured out and I know how I'm going to do it on Ravelry. But the designs will be exclusive to the club until the end of the year, I think, or till the end of November. So it will go from, there'll be 7 designs from March, so every month from March until September, and then I will have a running knit along for the club until the end of the year. And so you will have so yeah, there'll be monthly knit alongs for each design, and then there will be an overall grand prize thread knit along where you only get 1 post per person, but then you can go in and edit the post to add pictures. So you would hopefully by the end of the year have all 7 designs in there. This is why you're getting until the end of the year. So if you don't finish it 1 a month, you have a couple of months at the end of the year to finish off any socks that you need to. So as long as you have all 7 designs in your finished thread, then you'd be eligible for the grand prize at the end of the year. That's kind of the thinking behind it at the moment, rough idea on how that will work. And like I said, the designs will be exclusive to people who have bought the club, and then at the end of the year I will release them as individual patterns as well on Ravelry. That, again, that's the thinking behind it for now. Like I said, I'm waiting to hear back from Ravelry to see how this will work, and once I get all the kinks worked out and everything's a bit more finalized, I will share more information over the next couple of weeks, hopefully. So that's the general idea. I'm so glad that so many of you are interested in doing this. The patterns will range in, there will be a variety, they're mostly going to be textures. There will be some twisted stitches, there will be some lace. And when I say lace, I don't mean nothing like the one I showed you earlier, but very simple lace. There'll be mostly textures. Yeah, it's just going to be a nice sort of play on just yeah, nice sort of play on the socks and designs. It's sort of like building on the Beyond Vanilla sort of collections that I've done in the past, and just taking it that little step further. So there'll be some patterns that are more basic and some that are a bit more complicated. Comparatively, none of them are actually complicated in that sense. They're all very simple and easy to follow for the most part. I'm hoping they will be very intuitive once you get into it, and they'll just be fun, relaxing knits for you guys to do throughout the year. And so what I'm going to do is what I was initially thinking of doing was doing it in order of difficulty, kind of how I've done my Beyond Vanilla 1 and 2. But actually, I think what I'm going to do is mix it up. So I'm going to have a more simple pattern, then a slightly more complicated pattern, then a more simple one, then a more complicated, to kind of mix it up throughout the year and give you guys a bit of variety. Let me know what you think about that. That's an idea. And yeah, so I think that covers what I have to share about that for now. So idea is to start the club 1st of March. That gives me a little bit of time to get a bit of a head start, getting some of the designs knit up, so I get a bit ahead of myself in case, because things are inevitably going to slow down for me knitting wise once baby gets here, at least initially. So I want to be a few months ahead and not have to worry about that for too much. And yeah, so that's why I'm waiting until March to launch it. If you have any questions about the sock club, please let me know. There is a questions and suggestions thread in the group, and also you can leave a question in the YouTube comment section as well. Those are the best places to write to me with questions so I can answer them on the podcast. Having said that, we will now move on to the questions and answer section. I had a few questions to answer from last week. First one, someone asked on YouTube, the first 2 questions came from YouTube. I didn't write down who asked them, but the first one was, what do we have the heat set on in our house? Because the person was surprised that I was just wearing like a t-shirt last week on the podcast, even though it was quite cold outside. We don't have the heat on at all in our apartment at the moment. It is so hot in here, it is ridiculous. Our building is centrally heated, which means the building controls the heat, not us. They pump heat throughout the whole building, and because we're on a lower floor, in order for the heat to get to the upper floors, our floor ends up getting quite hot. So we actually had to call the maintenance guy in to turn down the heating in our apartment, because I don't know what it is, there's some sort of valve that controls it or something or other. I mean, we can turn the heat on and off, but even when it's off, there's still a certain amount of heat coming out of these radiators, or the heating unit, whatever they're called, the heating and air conditioning units that we have in our apartment. So we had to call the maintenance guys in to turn it down to the lowest possible setting. They can't turn them off completely because they need to run hot water through the pipes to stop them freezing in the winter, but they turned it down to the lowest possible setting. And even so, I still sleep with the window open a crack at night, and even during the day in the living room I normally have one of the windows open a little bit, because it does get very warm in here. And again, when you're in an apartment building, because you're surrounded by other apartments, you get that extra insulation, heat insulation as well. So that's why I'm pretty much just wearing t-shirts and still really, really hot all the time. Oh, and the other question was about sock blanks, which I talked about before. So in the questions and suggestions thread, I had a few to answer. One is from Amy and Suggy, and she says, I was wondering if you can wash non-superwash merino socks in the washer, and if so, do you put them in a garment bag, and do you use cold water or not? Or hot, sorry. I've never actually washed non-superwash yarn in the washing machine. I'm pretty sure it is possible. A couple of people commented on that question saying that they've washed, they have put it in a garment bag and washed it on a cold cycle, and it's been okay. I don't think I actually have any non-superwash. I probably do have some non-superwash socks that I've knit up last year, but I haven't worn them yet, so I haven't washed them. So I don't have any experience with that myself. I would probably steer away from using washing machine for those personally. Just I would probably only wash superwash yarns in the wash, just to be safe. Then the next question wasn't so much a question, but it was a comment by someone who was saying, because I said last week that, or someone asked last week if our baby was going to be an American citizen as well as a British citizen, and they commented saying that children are only citizens in the US if their parents are citizens, and that just being born in the US doesn't make them a citizen. Now, technically that is correct. Just being born in the US doesn't make you a citizen, because otherwise you'd have people coming over on holiday all the time just to have their babies here. But it is not true. Our baby will be a citizen because we are legally residing in the US when she is born. You need to be a legal resident either on a green card as a citizen or under some sort of residence visa in order for your child born here to be considered a US citizen. As a parent, you don't have to be a citizen for that to be the case. A couple of people commented on that in the thread, but I just wanted to clear that up in case anyone else was curious or thought the same thing. By no means is it the reason why we came to the US. It's just a bonus side effect of our decision that we came here and that this was the thing. I mean, we were already thinking about coming to the US even before we found out I was pregnant, so it really wasn't a deciding factor, let's put it that way. So Peach Wilson on Ravelry, it's her Ravelry name, she asked, I recently purchased your dragon's teeth hat, thank you so much, and really love the pom-pom. How did you make yours? So that pom-pom I have on the dragon's teeth hat, and I don't have the hat with me to show it to you, I will have it next week, is a 2-color pom-pom. So what I did was I used a pom-pom maker, one of those clover pom-pom makers, and I wound one color for half the amount that I was going to use on one side and the other half on the other side, and then I wound a second color over the top of the first one on both sides in those equal amounts, and so that gave me a nice sort of color blocked looking pom-pom at the end when I finished it. I hope that makes sense. If not, let me know if that didn't make sense, and I will try and show you next time I podcast when I actually have the hat with me to show you what I mean on the pom-pom. Then there's another question from Nympha. I cannot pronounce that name, I am so sorry, but her question is, I'm interested in the sock club, but is it okay to use any kind of yarn? Unfortunately, sock yarns are not available here in my country yet, and buying internationally is not financially possible for me. Yeah, you can use whatever yarn you want. If you want to do a heavier weight sock, that's fine. The pattern will be written for sock yarn, and I mean the patterns will be written for sock yarn, so you would have to make your own adaptations to work for different weights of yarn if that is what you want to do. And follow-up question she had is about my visit to Japan, and did I travel there alone? No, I traveled with a friend of mine. Was it difficult to get around Japan, especially because of the language differences and stuff? It wasn't. We made an effort. We learned a few words and phrases. A lot of people were quite happy to try and practice their English with us. And when we were in Tokyo, we were actually staying with a friend of ours who was Japanese and lived in Tokyo. So she helped us plan our trip. I mean, we already knew where we were going, but she sort of helped us out a little bit with some stuff as well. So that was quite good. And so it wasn't actually that difficult. We had a good time. One thing we learned was that Japanese people, they don't like to say no. So we had to be careful about how we phrased our questions. Rather than saying, are we going the right way? They would always just say yes, even if we were going the wrong way, because they didn't want to be rude and say no. We had to ask, is this, you know, how do we get to this place? Rather than saying, are we going the right way? We had to ask a specific question rather than a yes-no question, essentially. That was something we learnt. And then she says, did you visit any yarn stores? No, only because I wasn't a knitter back then. I went to Japan back in 2009 and I didn't start knitting until 2014. So I wasn't a knitter. I have no real experience of Japanese yarn stores or the quality of their yarns compared to yarns we get elsewhere. And lastly, she asked, do I buy some kind of souvenir in each of the places that I've visited? Sometimes, it depends where I'm going. I very much enjoy photography, and for the most part, the photos that I take on a trip are the souvenirs that I bring back. Sometimes I went through a phase where I collected keyrings from everywhere that I went, and then I just had a massive keychain full of keyrings from everywhere that I'd been to. So that got a little bit unwieldy. I would occasionally pick up like fridge magnets for my mum and things like that, but generally not really. Like I said, the photos I take when I go on trips are generally the souvenirs that I bring back. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. I do have 3 more questions in the thread, but this has been quite a long episode so far already, so I think I'll answer the last 3 questions in that thread next week, with any others that pop up between now and then. Now I have a question for you guys, and this question is not at all knitting related at all. Now that we know that our stuff is arriving next week, we did purchase a slow cooker since getting here. We've tried it out a couple of times so far and it works pretty well. We're quite happy with it. I am now looking to try and start stockpiling our freezer for when the baby gets here. And like I said, now that I know our furniture's coming next week, I'm going to get my pots and pans back. I can start cooking in bulk again and stockpiling the freezer, at least with a few meals if nothing else, to get us through the beginning bit, at least until my mum gets here. So my question for you guys is, it's actually twofold. If you have any good recommendations for recipes that are good to be frozen and then reheated, like cooked and then frozen, preferably something that we can cook and have for dinner and then freeze leftovers. That would be the most convenient to do. And any good slow cooker recipes that you guys use that you really enjoy. Again, even better if they can be frozen afterwards as well, but if not, just general slow cooker recipes that you really enjoy. I've started doing a little bit of research and sort of looking online and bookmarking a few recipes to try out and stuff, but I'd be interested if you've been using your slow cooker for a long time, what are your favorite recipes to use? And I'm really looking forward to using ours more, and same with some good freezer recipes. I have a few staples that I used all the time when we were in Dubai or in Bahrain, but I'm looking to try and expand on that I guess repertoire of recipes that we use, because we always seem to go back to the same old basics. So I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts and suggestions on that one. And finally, week in review. I'm going to try and keep this quick, but last week on Thursday, Jenny from Handmade and Woolen was in town, so we all went out for dinner. A bunch of us knitters went out for dinner with her on Thursday evening, which was really nice to hang out and catch up again. Then on Friday last week I had my doctor's appointment, which went well. She's sending me for an ultrasound this Friday at the hospital to get an estimated birth weight, so that should be interesting. So I'll be 36 weeks at that point, so that should be interesting to find out how big or small she's going to be. I'm not entirely sure. It's strange because my bump hasn't really changed that much in the last, it's pretty much since we got to the US, it hasn't really grown at all. It hasn't gotten any bigger. It's definitely gotten more tight, like the skin feels tauter, so I know she's bigger inside, but the bump itself hasn't grown that much since we got here. So I'm interested to see how big they think she's going to be when she's born. Then Friday afternoon, after my doctor's appointment, I headed to the Marriott Marquis, where I waited for Eric to finish classes and met up with Kelsey from Primrose Young Co, and we sort of toured the marketplace a little bit. I did the majority of my shopping on that Friday, which I'm so glad that I did, but it was so much fun. And I got to meet Johi Locatelli and Vera Valimaki, which was so lovely. I was not expecting to bump into them, and it was just one of those moments where Johi and I sort of like locked eyes across like a stand of yarn, and it was just really funny. And we both sort of had that moment of recognition. So that was really nice to get to chat with them and spend some time with them as well. And they seemed to be having a good time, which was great. And yeah, and then later that evening, Kelsey, Eric and I and one of Kelsey's friends, Lavanya, we went out for dinner nearby somewhere. And it was just a really nice, relaxed evening. And then after dinner, I was pretty much done. I was so tired. I was like, I need to go home and sleep and get ready for Saturday, which was an intense day. Saturday was super intense, but in the best possible way. I met up with a bunch of knitting friends, which if you've seen the vlog, you'll know. Met up with Kristen from Yarngasm, Jinx So Laura from Jinx Yarns, Di's Notebook podcast, and Jacqueline from Brooklyn Knit Folk, Julie from Sweet Sparrow Yarns, and Katie from Inside Number 23. She was in town for Vogue Knitting Live, and so I got to see her as well. So we all met up for a coffee in the morning and then headed up to the marketplace together, and pretty much hang out for the rest of the day. We kind of broke off into smaller groups here and there and then met back up again and bumped into other people around the place. We met up with Gabby and Adrian, Gabby from the Once Upon a Corgi podcast and Adrian from the Freakish Lemon podcast. And yeah, it was just a whirlwind day. It was so much fun getting to meet so many people, so many friends, people that I'd met the year before, people that I met for the first time. So many wonderful viewers came up and said hi. Saw quite a few squishy shawls around the venue, which was amazing, and it was just so much fun getting to chat to people, like I said, new friends and old ones. It was just so lovely, and thank you to everyone who stopped me to say hi. I loved it, and it was just a wonderful experience all around. Then I'm just trying to think, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So then we had a big group dinner later that evening as well, which was nice, but again, by the end of it, absolutely shattered. And then Sunday, I made it back to the marketplace just for the designers panel. So they had it's like a half-hour Q&A with Hohi Locatelli, Gudrun Johnson, Mary Jane Mucklestone, Bristol Ivy, and Michelle Wong. So that was something that I definitely wanted to check out. So Katie, myself, Kelsey, and Eric had arranged to go see that together, like to meet up to go see that together, and so we did that, and then pretty much after that we called it done for the day. We were tired. It was a long weekend. It was so much fun and just felt very rejuvenated, even though it was tiring. But after that, I spent the last couple of days just relaxing, resting my back, and just taking it easy. We finally caved and got Perry a separate airbed because he was basically a walking zombie during the daytime. He was so tired, he was not sleeping well at all. He's quite a light sleeper, and with me getting up 2-3 times in the night to go to the toilet, it wasn't helping him at all. And like I said, any little movement you make on an airbed, whoever is sharing it with you is going to feel it. So it's relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of things, and I was like, it's not worth your sanity. We don't know how much longer we're going to have to wait for the furniture to arrive, which as it turns out is only going to be another week, but it could have been anything up to 2-3 weeks. So we were like, it's just not worth it. So we got him one. He's sleeping better. I'm sleeping better because I'm not worrying about waking him up. And in general, I think we're both just getting better sleep at the moment. It's not fun sleeping in separate rooms, but it's only for another week until our bed arrives. I am so looking forward to getting our mattress back. You have no idea how excited I am about getting that mattress back. Oh, I just need to start a new segment. Okay, so like I said, we got the news yesterday that our stuff has arrived and that it's cleared customs super fast. Honestly, it was about time something worked in our favor. I know I said this before, but you have no idea the relief I felt when we got that email. I was just beyond ecstatic. I was stupidly excited by it. I mean, at the end of the day, it is just things. It is just material things. It's nothing of real value in that sense, but it's just that feeling of knowing that we're going to have everything sorted out, or at least not everything's gonna be sorted. I'm pretty sure we'll still have stuff in boxes by the time the baby arrives, but our furniture will be here. The main things will be sorted. We will have a sofa to lay down on or to sit on or whatever. We will have our TV back. Not that we use it very much for actual TV. We just stream things onto it. You know, we'll be able to get our cabinets back, and I've got some shelves and things I want to put in the baby's room to like organize her stuff, and I'll actually feel like I'll be able to do things and get things finalized and not have to stop halfway through because I don't have the things I need to be able to finish whatever it is I'm organizing. And on the note of the baby's things, most of the things from the baby have arrived now. We just have a few more things on their way. Hugo is starting to show a lot of interest in the baby's things. I found him in the bassinet thing of the stroller the other day, and he tried to jump into the baby's crib thing, and yeah, he's just been all over sniffing out the baby's things. Derek is a bit more blasé about it all. But anyway, they're both doing fine, they're settling in well. I've caught Derek at the window a few times chirping away at the birds, which is very, very cute to watch. And yeah, so like I said, I'm really excited. Our stuff's arriving next Monday. Probably going to take a couple of days to just sort stuff out and get everything organised. And so I'm not entirely sure when I will be podcasting next week. It may still be on Wednesday, it might end up being Thursday. It just depends on how things go with the move and the furniture and stuff like that. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. This has been a pretty long episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back with you guys again next week, hopefully, with furniture in the background, fingers crossed. That will be exciting. And yeah, so take care, and I will speak to you guys soon. Have a happy knitting week. Bye.